How to kill visceral fat in 30 days. This is exactly what I would do if I only had 4 weeks to get rid of my visceral fat. The step-by-step, no BS way. Yes, we want to look good with our shirts off, but what's more important is our long-term health and longevity. That belly fat is taking both of those things away, but I have to say this. Warning, this process is simple, but it is not easy and it is not sustainable long term. This is what I call my in case of emergency break glass method. We'll tackle visceral fat from both angles so we can get it done fast. My name is Michael Diamonds. I'm a medical doctor and a pro natural bodybuilder. And over the last 2 years, we've been looking deep under the hood of all our clients doing DEXA scans, MRIs, and a complete blood panel. And this strategy has worked for them every single time from all of the clients that I've ever worked with. So at the end of the video, you'll be able to do the same and you'll be able to lose your visceral fat and hopefully in the process reveal those abs. Let's not waste time and dive straight in. I will actually start with the hardest step. I'm sure you've heard of subcutaneous fat. This is the fat under the skin and you can pinch it all over your body, and if you have it in excess, there's a lot around the belly, the hips, and the legs. Genetically dependent. Now, visceral has everything to do with organs, especially those in the abdominal cavity. It can be pinched and it can be dangerous because it's metabolically active. It's stored around several organs like your heart, your liver, your intestines, your pancreas. And if you have a growing belly, the likelihood that you have both subcutaneous and visceral growing at the same time is very high, unlike fat that just sits under the skin and functions as an insulator. Here's why it poses such a significant risk. So with inflammation, visceral fat releases chemicals called cytokines, and these cytokines trigger inflammation throughout the body. All these aches and pains that you feel quickly can be a result of that. So imagine all of your organs are inflamed because of this fat. Imagine it as sludge all over these organs. This inflammation can lead to a narrowing of the blood vessel, consequently causing high blood pressure and an increase in risk of heart disease. The second reason is insulin resistance. It interferes with how your body uses insulin and making it less effective. So insulin is a storage hormone. Its job is to take glucose and store it in the right places. But when it's not being stored in the right places and it's not working well, the sugar hangs around in your blood. This can lead to high blood sugar, type 2 diabetes, and all the complications as a result. And this can disrupt those organs' normal function. We also have higher disease risk. The inflammation and the metabolic changes that are caused by visceral fat are linked to serious conditions like stroke, Alzheimer's, and even certain cancers. You also finally get hormonal disruption. It can throw off the hormones that regulate your appetite, the amount that you're eating. It can throw off the hormones that are responsible for fat storage and energy, making it harder to manage your weight overall. So it's just like quicksand. In essence, visceral fat isn't just extra padding. It's an active threat that's disrupting all of the systems of your body and significantly increasing the risk of a life-threatening disease down the line. So here's how we're going to get rid of it step by step. The first step that I mentioned, as promised, is going to be the hardest, but in my opinion, the most effective strategy. I call it the double fasting approach. There's a 2020 research paper titled Time Restricted Eating with or without low carbohydrate diet reduces visceral fat and improves metabolic syndrome, a randomized control trial. And a 2023 study titled the Magnetic Resonance Study for Visceral Subcutaneous Liver and Pancreas Fat Changes After 12 Weeks of Intermittent Fasting in Obese Participants with Prediabetes, all saw significant improvement with overall fat loss and especially the fat loss of visceral fat from doing as little as 16 hours per day fast and even longer. So this is the strategy I want you to follow for the next 4 weeks. Every week, once a week, I want you to do 1 24-hour fast and 6 16-hour fasts. So basically, let's say you're starting my in case of emergency protocol on a Monday. Every Monday for the next 4 weeks will be a fasting day. But this is the trick. I want you to have an early dinner the previous night. So let's say your last meal is at 8 p.m. on Sunday. And this will kickstart the clock. And then you can break your fast on the Monday at 8 p.m. This way, this is the 24 hours of fasting. And 8 of those 24 hours, you are already sleeping, making things so much easier. And these are the benefits. Number one, we're already establishing a caloric deficit. We know to burn this 1 pound of fat, you need to be in a 3,500 caloric deficit. Now, to achieve this, it's going to be calories in versus calories out. Now, because our calories in for the 24 hours are virtually at zero, all you have to do in that one day is burn a pound of fat by burning 3,500 calories, which I'm going to show you how to do later in the next few steps. So if you've ever done a 24-hour fast, let me know in the comments for the people who are watching to see what their experience is. And did you know that the weight loss was fast or was it hard? I think your story may inspire someone to really try this. But basically on day one, you should have already burned a pound of fat because you ate at 0 calories and burned 3,500 calories through activity. Now, obviously, this isn't entirely accurate because it's not a direct one-to-one with math. Day one, you're already putting yourself in a very good deficit to be able to lose fat, and especially that visceral fat. Even my client Montina would do this every Sunday, and he noticed that he got so much work done on those days. He felt extremely motivated, mentally clear, he felt his body less inflamed, and he would tell me that after having a 24-hour fast, he felt mentally resilient. It cured any sugar cravings. When I've personally done a 24-hour fast, I felt mentally resilient. It's cured any of my cravings, and it allows me to really follow a plan properly from the very beginning. But these are some of the other benefits of how the 24-hour fast is going to help you with losing your visceral fat. The first key thing as why it's going to help with visceral fat is improving your insulin levels. We know that if your insulin is high, you won't lose any fat. Its main job is being a storage hormone, primarily taking the glucose in the blood and transporting them into the right cells like your muscles in the form of glycogen, your brain, your liver, etc. But when you fasted for 24 hours, your insulin levels will be extremely low, putting you in the best position to be able to pull from that fat tissue in your viscera and also subcutaneously. It also will improve how your body responds to the next glucose spike that you're going to receive, meaning that it will improve your insulin sensitivity because your body will become more efficient at using the food in the future and decreasing the chances that that food that you're eating is translated into fat. I love doing this because especially my clients who are pre-diabetic or type 2 diabetic, it dramatically improves their insulin sensitivity. Another massive factor as to how this fasting will help with the visceral fat is autophagy. For those of you who don't know what it is basically the process of your body clearing out and repairing any damaged cells, including your visceral fat. This is amazing for anti-aging and also removing any potential diseases by promoting cell renewal and reducing the buildup of any dysfunctional cellular parts. We have the boost of human growth hormone, which is essential for boosting metabolism, muscle maintenance, and fat loss. And on top of that, working against what visceral fat is doing, it will reduce the inflammation and improve the factors that I mentioned earlier, like your blood pressure, cholesterol levels, and triglycerides. Finally, it's amazing for your gut. A 24-hour fast can contribute to a healthier gut through mechanisms like modulating the microbiota, basically flushing out all of the bad bacteria in your gut and promoting growth of good bacteria, and reducing inflammation in your gut because you're not stressing the gut giving it food all the time. However, because individual responses can vary and research is still in the early stages, it will be different. With a 24-hour fast, combining that 16-8 fast on the following days can allow you to also establish a caloric deficit. So you're still taking advantage of the benefits of fasting on day 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and all the way to 7. So that double fasting approach will help you tremendously with reducing your visceral fat. Step number 2, we want to eliminate processed foods and we want to promote gut-friendly foods. Your diet is a make or break with visceral fat. So for the next 30 days, I want you to cut out all processed foods, anything that's been altered from its natural state, that has added sugars, trans fats, artificial ingredients like artificial sweeteners. So I want you to think your sodas, your chips, your fast food, anything that's been packaged, white bread, and frozen pizzas. There's a 2021 study in Nutrients that showed ditching the processed foods can reduce your visceral fat dramatically in 8 weeks. Why? These foods spike insulin, and as you can see, the theme here is we want to keep insulin as low as possible. This consequently drives inflammation and feed your visceral fat growth. Instead, I want you to eat whole foods, focusing on the 10 best for your gut, which will calm the inflammation, balance your hormones, and will support your fat loss. So here's how processed foods are stopping you from losing the weight. Number one, insulin spikes. Because the carbs are refined from the sugary cereals, this will flood your blood with glucose, raising your insulin levels to a dramatically high state and then consequently causing you to store fat, especially around the organs. Inflammation, trans fats, and artificial additives trigger those cytokines by the visceral fat, worsening those inflammatory markers. Nutrient void, they lack fiber, there's no vitamins, there's no minerals in there, leaving you feeling hungrier and overeating. Now, these are the gut-friendly food that I want you to replace instead, and I'll even show you how to make them into recipes. So the first thing is yogurt. I want plain or unsweetened. Why yogurt is so useful is that it's packed with probiotics like lactobacillus, which boosts the good bacteria. Kefir, number two, it's a fermented drink with diverse probiotics. It's going to support your gut barrier so that no bad pathogens pass through it, and it will reduce your inflammation. Number three is sauerkraut, fermented cabbage. It's rich in fiber and probiotics, and it strengthens the gut's lining. Number four is kimchi. It's a spicy fermented veggie, high in antioxidants, very popular in South Korea. I highly recommend buying kimchi and adding this to your diet overall. Number five, for all my people out there with a sweet tooth, is going to be blueberries. You'll consistently hear me talk about fiber. I want you to think of fiber as this mesh, and the more fiber we have in our diet, the more the glucose needs to pass through this mesh before it gets into our bloodstream, consequently reducing the insulin spikes that we get. Blueberries also contain polyphenols, which will feed the good bacteria and stabilize your blood sugar. Chia seeds, they have 10 grams of fiber per ounce. This will help you again with that promotion of feeling full and also healthy digestion. Number seven, salmon. Omega-3 fatty acids. This will reduce your systemic inflammation and also improve your insulin sensitivity. It's also extremely filling, which will help you also establish a caloric deficit. Spinach, its prebiotic fiber will fuel the good bacteria. It will fuel also your gut health overall. Number nine, I want you to only have a few of these, let's say about 10 almonds. Monosaturated fats and the fiber can stabilize your blood sugar and reduce your cravings. And then finally, avocado. They have healthy fats, 7 grams of fiber per half, and it will also improve your overall gut function. So how I want you to do this with your 16-8 protocol is we want to aim for 3 meals in your 8-hour window period. So this is a sample day. I want you to have Greek yogurt with your blueberries and chia seeds. For lunch, I want you to have salmon and avocado and have a bit of a salad in there. You can have a spinach salad, you can add the sauerkraut or even the kimchi in there. And then for dinner, we want a grilled chicken, roasted veggies, and just that 10 almonds I was talking about. If you can prep things in advance, eat slowly, eat calmly, activate your parasympathetic nervous system, which we're going to talk about a bit later. This will help you with reducing your visceral fat. But let's move on into the next step. Step number 3 will probably have the biggest effect, and this has to happen in the 30 days for it to be effective. No alcohol. Alcohol is off the table. It is a visceral fat magnet. It's loaded with empty calories. It's 7 calories per gram, which is nearly as much as fat. And when you consume alcohol, your liver will prioritize detoxifying the blood and getting rid of the alcohol and also halting fat in the process. There's a 2020 study by the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, and that study is linked and says that alcohol will increase visceral fat in both men and women. It also spikes your stress hormone cortisol. This will disrupt all your other hormones and make you even crave more processed foods and undoing all of your progress. So this is what alcohol actually does. It will put stress on the liver. Your liver will process the alcohol, producing acetate, which it will focus on burning instead of fat. In this period, it can be up to 36 hours. And during that period, you're detoxifying the alcohol. Your body's storing all of the fat around the organs especially. You get a cortisol surge. Alcohol raises cortisol, the stress hormone that will drive the increase of visceral fat, and also appetite dysregulation. When you've had a drink, it lowers your inhibitions. It's going to stimulate your appetite. This is why people will usually go out to eat at night after a night of drinks. So the late night pizzas or the chips aren't going to help us at all during this process. Sleep disruption. Alcohol will reduce the time you spend in REM sleep, raising your hunger hormones and fat storage. And instead, I highly recommend when you go out, just drink sparkling water, maybe add some lemon to it. If you can, maybe have a tea. But the main thing here that I highly recommend in this 30-day challenge, control your environment. If you have to say no to your friends that usually go out and drink, do that for the next 30 days because your health is dependent on it. At this stage, I also would love to know in the comments, guys, for all of you who have friends that go out and drink and you don't drink, what do you do instead? Personally, any 0-calorie drinks, sparkling water is a great go-to. I've talked about the fasting, I've talked about the nutrition, and I've also talked about no alcohol, but what about the exercises that can help us tremendously? And this is going to be zone 2 cardio. The definition of zone 2 cardio is getting your heart rate, your cardiovascular system at 60 to 70% of the max heart rate. In translation, this usually equates to 130 beats per minute to 140 beats in terms of your heart rate range. So you want to have your heart there for a certain number of time. So the tools I highly recommend that you use as a form of cardio for zone 2 is a bike, Stairmaster, walking on an inclined treadmill, rowing. All those are fantastic at being very low impact on your joints to keep inflammation low. That being said, now we want to spend time in that zone 2 training. So this is the protocol I would recommend. If you're a beginner and you're very overweight, 2 sessions of 30 minutes. We want an hour worth of cardio in that week. Let's say you're not in the greatest shape. Well, you can do 4 sessions of 15 minutes and you can do the Stairmaster and you can do the elliptical, any of the tools I just gave you. In week 2, I want us to increase from 2 sessions to 3 sessions of 30 minutes. In week 3, I want you to increase that from 3 sessions to 4 sessions of 30 minutes. And then in week 4, I want you to increase that all the way to 5 sessions of 30 minutes. The more time you spend in zone 2, this will help you tap more into fat stores. This will help improve your overall cardiovascular markers, and this will help you establish a caloric deficit. But zone 2 is amazing because it falls in the balance of really being able to burn a considerable amount of calories, also to improve your overall insulin sensitivity, because what's happening is as you're doing zone 2, you're tapping both into your fat stores and your carbohydrate stores. So in the future, as I mentioned, insulin is the big culprit here. We can improve our overall insulin sensitivity. And that is the cardio that I highly recommend. A special mention, which is extremely important, is also doing resistance training. The way I want you to think of your muscles, besides its ability to give you a great look, is that muscles function as a sponge. Every time you eat carbohydrates, the carbohydrates will first go to your liver. Once your liver is saturated, all the carbohydrates you eat go to your muscle tissue so that it can be stored and used as an energy source. So the more muscle you have, the bigger your sponge will be, consequently decreasing that sugar in your bloodstream being translated into fat. The more muscle, the better. Finally, the final step that I want to talk about that will improve your visceral fat dramatically is going to be 2 things: stress and sleep. Here, I want to talk about stress, and I was having this conversation with my clients and it really gave them so much clarity on why we implement the strategies we do. So stress, the main hormone, the main culprit responsible here is cortisol. Now, cortisol is not the enemy. Too much of it is where it becomes a problem. Too much cortisol, the way I describe it, is like anti-testosterone. It breaks down your muscle compared to testosterone building up your muscle. It decreases your metabolism, opposite of testosterone. And it also stores fat compared to testosterone that will help you burn fat. In the autonomic nervous system, we have a spectrum in terms of stress. We have our sympathetic nervous system on this side, which is our fight or flight. And on the opposite spectrum, we have our rest and digest, which is our parasympathetic nervous system. But most people spend more time in this fight or flight chronic cortisol state, consequently causing you to store more fat. So what we want to do is bring it more to the middle, if not more to the parasympathetic stage. And now I'll tell you what are some things we can do to be able to spend more time in a parasympathetic state. And the best way I can describe it, your parasympathetic nervous system are all the things that your body does without you really thinking about it. So for example, you breathe without thinking. That is just happening automatically. You have your heartbeat as a result of the parasympathetic nervous system. And you'll notice that all these functions are single functions that your body's taking over. And the first thing that can help us spend more time in the parasympathetic is where we talk about mindfulness and meditation. If you think about it, all meditation is concerned with your breathing or concerned with focusing on one thing. And that focusing on one thing can help us push ourselves more into a state of being in rest and digest. So 5 to 10 minutes of mindfulness practices. What I personally did was downloaded an app called Calm. This app literally saved my life, and meditation saved my life, because just that stress between being in the hospital and building this channel was a lot. And that app has a 30 days beginner's guide by Jeff Warren. And I listened to that every day just for 10 minutes. It allowed me, and it shifted me from being in a very stressed state to being in a more Buddha rest and digest state. So doing that 10 minutes a day can help you have your cortisol decreased, consequently decreasing the amount of visceral fat that you'll have. Now that we've talked about mindfulness, you can do journaling. You can do any practice that you may feel can help you focus on one thing. This is why some people say running is fantastic, because when you're running, your brain can only focus on your breath and what's ahead of you versus all the 10,000 things people want to process. But the next thing that we want to do to decrease cortisol, increase our time in being in a parasympathetic state, is sleeping. Sleeping helps you overall with improving how much time you're in a parasympathetic state and allowing your body to recover, decreasing inflammation. And there's a high correlation between people who have visceral fat and people who are sleeping less than 6 hours. In short, the tactic we use is 10, 3, 2, 1. Those numbers, I want you to remember them. The first thing I see with a lot of people is the caffeine. We're in a state where Starbucks is everywhere and we drink a lot of caffeine. I'm personally guilty of this. 10 hours, you want to stop all caffeine 10 hours before you go to bed. This is because even though you've had the cup of coffee, the active ingredient caffeine is still running in your bloodstream, and it has a half-life of about 6 hours, which means that cup of coffee 6 hours later, half of that is still in your bloodstream, which can impact your sleeping process. So if you're trying to go to bed at 10 p.m., no more caffeine at 12 o'clock. This will allow you to really feel tired so you can get to bed. 3 hours before bed, we want to stop eating. Although you've had your meal, your body will still be working actively to break down all the components of the food. 2 hours before bed, no more liquids. We don't want to be waking up to going to the bathroom and disrupting your sleep process. And then the big culprit for a lot of people, devices, laptops, phones, computers, TV screens, they all emit blue light, which blocks our body from being able to produce our sleepiness hormone called melatonin. So what we want to do is at least 1 hour before bed, we want to be able to go to bed. If not, we want to put on blue light blocking glasses. These are these amber color. These are the effective ones. And this amber color prevents blue light from crossing into your eyes, and this way you'll start feeling sleepy. With my clients, I tell them, hey, once we put this on, once you start seeing the sunset, it'll be hard to keep your eyes open. And we're creatures of habit. I highly recommend you want to get into a system of going to bed at the same time every day. A lot of the people who've been joining my program, I always tell them that, hey, this isn't going to be fixed in one session or in a week. Sometimes getting your sleep right can take a month. So in these next 30 days, make an active investment in improving your sleep. This will decrease your visceral fat overall. So these are the 5 things that I would do to decrease my visceral fat, all with the idea of decreasing insulin and those insulin spikes specifically, decreasing our cortisol overall, and also just burning the calories required so you can be in a deficit. I'll leave the video here. Again, let me know how you guys felt about the 24-hour fast. Did that help you with your visceral fat? Tests I highly recommend doing to see how much visceral fat you have is having a tape measurement. If your waist, if you take a tape measure and it goes around your navel and you're over 40 inches for a man, definitely have too much visceral fat. For women, it's over 35 inches. You can do DEXA scans. It will tell you how much visceral fat you have. You can do an MRI. And if you just have a belly in general, very likely you have too much visceral fat. But I'll leave the video here. Let me know in the comments. Leave the video the gentle thumbs up, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.